Well, hello there. Oh, this? Well, it just so happens I'm gonna be preparing for a game we're gonna be talking about today. What game? Well, it just so happens that it's actually one of Japan's worst games of 2008. You wanted to know which game it was? Well, yeah, of course you would, otherwise you wouldn't be watching this video right now. Oh, come with me, I'll show you. Hey, you got the goods in there? What's this? Ah, there we go. Good news, everyone. This is probably gonna be the shortest video in the entire series of very bad Japanese games, the Kusoges of the year that I'll be doing. I get that it might seem like I'm copping out and putting less effort or something, but that's not what's happening here, alright? The reason why this video is shorter than every single other one is due to the fact that this might actually be the shortest game among all of the games within the series. In fact, a single run of this game from the start to the credits is so quick that this video is gonna be multiple times the length of that run. This game's backstory is very interesting in the sense of all of the issues and controversy that surrounded it when it first released. The more I read into it, the more insane it seemed that this game was as bad as it was. And looking at all of that though, another interesting thing hit me, which is that after playing this game and looking at the entire backstory and sitting on the tatami and reflecting on that for a while, I think I've come to the conclusion that, you know what? Perhaps this might be the first and only game I've played so far that may not actually belong on this list. So at that point, it might just hit you on the head that, wait a minute, if I've only ever talked about 2 of the games on this ranking list before in the past, then what am I basing this judgment that this game doesn't seem as deserving to be on this list off of? The answer to that is, I have not made the videos on the other games I have actually begun to play so far. For those of you who sometimes follow my streams, you might have seen the one VOD where I played both this and 2 other games. And aside from those 2 other games which I have not made a video on yet, I might in the future once I've actually played through them completely, I've also purchased another one. So in total, including this game, I have played a total of 6 different games that are on this list. And out of this 6, this game was probably the most entertaining one out of all of them. Now, I have not gotten crazy, alright? I am saying that it's entertaining with respect to the rest of the games on this list. I'm not saying that it's a good game, it really isn't. But at the same time, it also does not feel like it gets to the level of bad gameplay-wise to be deserving of being on this list. So let's get into talking about Progolfer Saru. That felt very horrible. So before I begin talking about the background of the game itself, let me quickly talk about the IP on which this game is based off. So Pro Golfer Saru is a golf, obviously, manga that was serialized between 1974 to 1980 on Shonen Sunday, and again from 1982 to 1988 on KOTY Comic. I say golf manga, but I mean it in the loosest of sense because this is as much of a golf series as Speed Racer is an actual racing thing. Like, yes, it does teach you a bit of the bare basics. Like, I think they do talk quite a bit in the actual manga about things like trying to gauge distance as well as reading the wind. But aside from that, it's mostly just fantasy almost like isekai-ish levels of golf where you're basically playing like Blood Bowl in the equivalent of football. That said, it was very beloved by its fans at the time, being so popular in fact that it actually got 2 anime seasons, one of which ran for 143 episodes. So to very simply explain the series is about this main character of ours over here, Monkey. I'm not being racist or something. His name is literally Saru, which means monkey. As he travels around the world, playing golf with racial stereotypes, while this evil villain who looks like a firefighter from the Napoleonic era stands in the bushes and stares at him a lot, all while a kid just drinks alcohol in the background. Like, that kid is not even like being exaggerated to pretend that he's drinking alcohol or something. In the actual manga's plot, he's just a alcoholic baby, so you can tell he's gonna turn into a real Chad when he grows up. But now that backstory is out of the way, let us talk about the game itself, because this game is actually magnificently bad, and it was actually very recognized during the era where it released as being one of the worst games of all time. Not only was it on this list of the worst games of all time, but this game is also on the record as being one of the lowest rated games on Famitsu magazine as well. And Famitsu magazine is actually typically very friendly with its rating systems. I mean, the way it works is that everything is scored out of a 40, and out of the 40, it's basically just 4 people each rating something out of a 10, and the summative score is what the game gets. And on that list, Skyrim is a 40 out of 40. Like, let us sink in for a second. Skyrim got that score. And this game is one of the very few games that has the magnificent honor of being a game with a score of 12 out of 40. And you might think, oh, that's not too bad, you know, it's still higher than a quarter, right? It could be worse, it could be a single digit score, right? Wrong! Okay, wrong. 12 is the lowest score that any game has ever gotten on the Famitsu magazine till this day. And on top of that, this game has the secondary honor of being the only game on the list where no one, and I mean no one, rated it higher than a 3. Because most of the other games on the list, they hold some kind of weird record for like having the lowest score. Like, I think one of the games had someone rating a 2 out of 10. However, even then, the reason why all of those games have an equivalent score to this is because someone out there on the world thought the game was mid enough to at least be a 4 or 5 or something, and that actually balanced it out. But this was the only game where everyone unanimously decided that this game is not worth a 4 out of 10. In fact, this game actually did so badly in terms of its performance that it only sold in the entirety of Japan, which was the only market where you could purchase it at the time, 720 copies. Which means that if you divided this across every single prefecture that existed in Japan, you have an average of 15 people per prefecture who purchased this game. In fact, the game did so badly that one of the people who rated it a 3 actually wrote in their comments that, in a way, it is quite valuable that I got to live through the era where a game such as this was released. Like, my god, I don't think anyone ever said the same thing about like E.T. or Superman 64 in the year of their release. For games like this, typically in the year where it's released, people will be lamenting the fact that it exists and the amount of pain and suffering it caused them. But here you have an official company writing a review saying that this truly was a miracle for them, like a true Christmas miracle of the golfing gods. But that said, what exactly went wrong behind the scenes? Like, before we go into the game, I would like to talk a bit more about that due to the fact that it is quite amazing how much hype this game actually built up for it being a good game before it actually released, only for it to fall like completely flat on the ground. Like, I would say that this game would have been on par with the rest of the other very bad games. But this was a game that was considered a bogey by most of its players, and like the Eagles they zoomed in and shat on it as hard as they could the moment they realized it was a bad game. But before that happened, the funny thing is that, and you can see this on the game's own cover as well, right here, this game was initially a game that was designed for the 50th anniversary of the Shonen Sunday publication itself. And mind you, this is a publication company that isn't exactly small either. many of you might have actually heard the name of this publication company because they deal with many of the biggest and some of the longest running series that are around as well. To name a few of their works, you might remember that this is the one that actually made Conan, or published it rather, as well as other series such as Tonikaku Kawaii, which is a bit more of a recent one, as well as Hayate no Gotoku, which was the... If you're a boomer, you might also remember Inuyasha, History's Strongest Disciple Kenichi. Point is, it was actually a publication company putting out a lot of very popular work, so many eyes were on this project when it announced the fact that this very popular series from the past would be getting a game now. And for people who were fans of the series back then, like, well, if they were actually like shonen at the time, they would probably be in their 40s now, overworked and probably balding more than I am right now. And this would be the people who are putting the most scrutiny and looking the most at this game. So let's keep them in mind, that this game is targeted at an audience for whom this series is something that was already close to like 20 years thereabout past its original release period. And when you look at the company that produced the game as well, it's yeah, it ain't exactly like some no-name company that produced this game and therefore ended up being pretty bad. This was a game which had been requisitioned to be produced by a company that was very big and quite popular in terms of the series that it had published in its manga publications in the past, to a company that is even to this day still producing games, and they're producing games of relatively high quality even till now, right? Even in the back, you can see Bandai Namco's actual logo there. And that's what makes this game so baffling. Because of the fact that very competent groups of people ought to have been involved in this. And when you look at the PV of this game, it kind of feels like it ought to have been that popular. Like, I'm gonna just keep it running now without the sound because the song that's playing with this is actually really good. Like, no joke, it's a good song, but I don't want this video to get like banished to the Shadow Realm by Bandai Namco, so you're just gonna have to watch it with just the video itself. But you look at the video that's playing right now, right? This does not look like a bad game. It actually looks like a game that would be an interesting golf game on the Wii. The way the targeting system works to aim your shot, the fact that you can still gauge your swing, it makes it look like it will at least be a decent game, even if not a great one, and actually brought quite a lot of hype to this game as well initially. Everything, when you look at it now, is stacked in its favor to make it a... Everything was stacked in its favor to make it seem like it would be a good game. So, what then exactly happened with this game? Well, for that, we are now going to have to talk about the game itself and the systems within it that would... I can't fix this thing. Okay. So, we're gonna have to look at the game itself and see, well, with all that we know about the hype, the PV, the talk about the game, what actually did the game play like? And perhaps this game could teach us to play the best golf we can in our lives. We're not? Oh. Well, maybe the game might have something for us to learn, either in terms of golf or game design, so let's give it a look. So you start the game and actually at that point nothing seems too off yet. You click the button and then Saru screams and bursts your eardrums going like, I am Saru! Pro golfer Saru! And when you get into the game itself, you're greeted by a menu that just looks like this, which... I guess when you look at a character game, which are games that are intentionally built with the main goal of allowing you to play and enjoy the characters of a specific series, like the Naruto Ninja Storm games, which are meant to focus more on being an enjoyable Naruto experience more so than being a super well balanced fighting game, so on and so forth. With games like this, you would expect some level of like content that you would want to be there. And the issue with this game, looking at the main menu here, I'll translate it for you, is that as you can see, there isn't really a story mode in this, which you might think like, oh yeah, but that makes sense, you're playing a golf game, why would you want a story mode in a golf game, right? But this is a golf game that's based off an anime series, and this game is meant to celebrate that series, so having a story mode of some sort, at least, feels like something that you would want to have with a game like this, because then it will let you have a unique gaming experience where you are getting to enjoy and experience the world of the series itself. But this game basically just gives you like this. Yeah, just like match, stroke, practice, and option. It doesn't really tell you what exactly match and stroke are supposed to mean. I mean, I don't think you really want to be stroking his golf stick, that much is for sure. So we won't be touching that mode first. Let's talk about the options. So when you go into the options of the game as well, it's kind of very lacking. For one thing, why is the game's data save and load functionality built into this option menu? And why is the second button the button to enable or disable autosave? And mind you, this game starts with autosave disabled, so I don't understand why 50% of the options on the menu are this. And then the next option is just the difficulty setting, and the last one is just whether or not you want the BGM to be on and off, which I've seen like people who talked about this game in the past complain about the fact that there's no volume settings on this menu. But to be fair, to be very fair, not having volume settings for a game on the Wii I can kinda get, since that was an era where people usually just change the volume on their television right away rather than using a slider within the game to change the game's volume. Not the best QOL wise, but it is understandable, so I will not shit on them for this too much. That said, we will shit on them for everything else, cause let's get right into the rest of the game itself. So to put it very simply, match, stroke, practice. Practice is just you practicing your shots. Stroke is you playing a single hole. And match is you playing an entire match. Though that said, you aren't exactly playing an actual golf game in this. Take all of the knowledge of golf that you have up in here, which is not much since you're all probably really too young to be playing golf. I mean, I don't play golf either, so take all of the non-existent knowledge we have up here and just like throw it out the window. Just throw it out the window instead, because none of it is going to apply in this game. For one thing, and I actually had to research this before the video itself, with a normal game of golf, you would typically be playing 9 or 18 holes, depending on the length of the course. This game only has 6 holes, which means that this game is 2/3 of the shortest game of golf, so we can just throw that concept out of this as well. But on top of that is the fact that this game doesn't even score the way a normal golf game would. Like you might have noticed, I said a best 3 out of 5. That is already, like, to the golf boomers out there who are watching this, the red flags are probably already going off, because the way a normal game of golf works is that you would calculate the number of strokes used per hole, and the winner will be the person who gets to the end of the game with the fewest number of strokes. So it doesn't matter even if I win in 3 holes, in the sense that I get there with fewer strokes than he does. If in the other 2 holes that I lose, I take so long that he's able to get a comeback, I would still lose in the end, because the game goes by your skill in getting to the very end rather than your ability to be just slightly marginally better than your opponent in each individual hole. So we can take that concept and also just throw it out there. I'm sorry, N-Pen man. I know you're unrelated to this, but you chose to create golf merchandise, so you're gonna have to suffer here with me. Arguably, you could say, yeah, but it's a fiction thing. It doesn't have to mimic real golf, right? If it provides a fun experience, it doesn't matter if the rules are slightly different. I mean, people play shotgun chess expecting to not get 100% the rules of chess, right? So if that's the case, why are you like talking about this as if this matters more so than everything else? Well, it's because this game actually isn't what it was made out to be. Everything that we've seen in the PV that I mentioned was actually not too bad. Fun fact, it was all actually gonna end up being a lie. One of the biggest catchphrases that people who played this game ended up having for this game is that instead of chanting the main character's favorite phrase, which is that "I am monkey, pro golfer monkey," or something like that. I don't remember the exact line. Instead of that, they were replacing his name with Sagi instead, which means scam, because basically to every single person who watched the PV, it's all a scam. So first thing, the music that was used in the PV itself, which is a banger, which I can't play on the stream because I don't want Bandai Namco to come after my ass, was completely not in the game at all. So we can take that out of the whole thing as well. I'm running out of things to throw, I think. And when it comes to the gameplay itself, I feel like one of the viewers who was watching the video who has this message for you guys probably summarized the game in the best way possible, which is that this isn't really a golf game. It is a point and click QTE game with a golf theme to it. What am I talking about? Am I going insane? No, I'll explain it now. So we can take the whole concept of golf as a game and just throw that out as well. Whoa! I think that fell into a hole beside my bed. Okay, I need to... Okay, I don't think there's anything else small that I could throw, so we should be fine. But what I mean by this is that the game literally does not have many golfing elements at all. As I'll explain a little deeper later on in this video, you aren't exactly given a lot of leeway to actually be playing a golf game where your decisions would matter in the same way as they would in golf. But before that, let's look at the characters that are in the game, because this was a thing that many of the fans complained about. So basically, for people like you and me who didn't live through the Great Depression, this is gonna make a little less sense. But basically, one of the big complaints that they had about the game was that the character choices were very questionable, in the sense that aside from Saru, who is the main character of the series, the rest of the characters were, instead of the main like professional golf players within the game's universe itself, they were all the underground professional players instead, which means that while some of them were popular, they were not the main arc team cast thing of the game, and so many people were disappointed that the proper like professionals within the series were not represented in this. But that said, let's take a look at the characters that are in the game. You don't have to worry, it's not gonna last like 7 hours like an introduction of Naruto Ninja Storm's character cast or something. This is probably gonna take a few minutes, because really this game only has 6 characters in it, and out of the 6, only 4 of them are available from the start of the game. The other 2 have to be unlocked through progress through the game. So yeah, man, a character game, like a game based off an anime for people to enjoy the characters from the series. And there's only 6 characters, out of which the characters that people want the most aren't even in the game. It's just... we're talking about like one of the iconic characters from the series not even being in the game. Instead, we just get Mr. Firefighter from the Napoleonic era BMing you every few seconds while you play as one of these 6 characters here. So let me just give the 6 characters a quick introduction. So you have our main character, Mr. Monkey. Once again, I'm not being racist, that's his actual name, okay? Then we have 10 Bruce Lee, who's using wait, what's he using? What the hell is that? There, I fixed it. Okay, so... right, so I got my very professional club here. Let's give this a look and see how well this actually works. Oh! You see that? You see that? Totally works. Okay, yeah, I'm glad we managed to fix the stick, but something tells me that the amount of money that I'm gonna incur and cost from trying to fix the tatami, as well as from the medical bills from hitting myself multiple times trying to fling the thing around, it's probably gonna outweigh most of the money you could earn from a golf tournament. So let's move on to the next character before I cause even more damage than necessary. So the next 2 characters we still have left, one of them is the lady over here called Benny. If I recall, her special ability is that she has very normal golf sticks like Saru, but unlike everyone else, she's the only character who cheats. So It doesn't really feel very nice that the only character that cheats is the female character, but let's look at the next character. And it's Mr. America right here. It's a cowboy person with sunglasses on. And for his clubs, he uses... He looks like the guy from Dexter's Laboratory. Come on, at this point it's not even a club anymore. Like, at least with the other guy, you know, it was still a club flail. This guy is swinging a literal bottle. I could make that work, I think. Right, so in order to emulate that, I ran into a little bit of a problem, which is that I kind of realized I don't really have many glass bottles lying around at home that I could use for this, since most drinks nowadays come in plastic bottles instead. Gotta kill the turtle somehow after all. But there is one kind of drink that definitely does come in a glass bottle. Initially when I went there, I was thinking of getting a normal size full bottle, but then it hit me that if I were to get a full size like normal bottle like the kind that the guy is using in the video, it kind of wouldn't really fit on my super small like golf clubs. And so if I were to put it on there and swing it and the weight just causes it to fall off and hit something, it's probably gonna damage my tatami mat even more, if not hitting me in the face and potentially killing me. So I decided to go with a smaller bottle that looks like this. So, you know, as the French always say it, cheers. Before that, I realized that like I don't really want to dismantle the other stick to redo the entire construction of the stick thing. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take another stick and we're gonna just try to like... I mean, a bend. It's not breaking though. There. This is never going back on. Now, let's go do the test. Sure, we don't need you anymore. Yeah, it's a bit more visible. Cool. Okay, let's give it a try. This might take a while, huh? Oh! Three tries was all I took. What do you know? Clearly this is the superior golf stick of them all. Holy shit, I did not expect to get it that quickly, but okay. Well, that was fun and really hot since I didn't have the air conditioner or the fan on in the other room. As you can see, clearly the whole bottle golf stick thing was a totally workable idea that is not full of flaws, and at the very least it's better than a nunchuck. So we've introduced the first 4 characters in the game. The next 2 aren't really that interesting. One of them is just a robot. This is basically a very good representation of how AI is slowly replacing us in everyday faculties. But all that existential dread aside, this character is actually pretty normal. He uses very normal looking clubs, albeit he hits with powers that are not exactly very human. But then again, aside from that, he's pretty much a basic bitch robot boy beta cuck, so we don't really have to put too much time into caring about this dude. Let's talk about the last character, because it's kinda interesting who they picked for the last character. As you can see from the silhouette, it's kinda very familiar, almost like we might have seen this character somewhere before. Oh wait! Yeah, that's right. In spite of the fact that there were so many characters in the game that they could have picked from, and there were so many characters that the people who bought the game wished were in the game, for some reason, for the 6th and only other secret character in the game, they decided to pick Banier for a second time. Like, it's almost bizarre that they decided to use the same character twice. And in terms of the character's importance to the plot, She isn't even the most important character. She's more like a supporting character at the side who, for some reason, the game decided that they wanted to put in twice. To put it into perspective, this is basically like getting a Naruto Ninja Storm game, except that the only 6 characters in the game are Naruto, Boruto, Nagi, Gaara, and you don't get Sasuke because remember, Sasuke is an important character to the thing, so he doesn't belong in this game. Instead, you get Choji, and Choji if he was 5 kgs lighter. So yeah, we're on this level of the character choices in this game. As I mentioned before, this game is a point and click game with QTE elements, and what I mean by this is that while it might look like you get a choice of where the ball flies because you're pointing the cursor at the screen, the choice is not as big as you think it is, in the sense that you could say that the screen is divided in a way like this, where the screen is essentially being divided into separate parts, and as long as you're pointing within that part, the ball will always land in the same spot. And what I mean by this is that, as you can see from the video here, the shots don't exactly travel to very different places. As long as you're within more or less a similar area, the ball will always land in the same spot. You and your opponent can always reach the same point at the same time if you aim at the same spot with the same swing strength. There you might think that, well, swing strength is a thing. You could technically just swing marginally stronger or lighter than your opponents, and your ball should end up centimeters apart at the very least, right? Well, you would think that, and that's what would happen in a normal golf game, but this ain't your normal golf game. This is your golf game at home instead. And so what happens in this game is essentially that you only have 2 different swing strengths. You can either go like full force or you go at half force instead. You have no other choices between these two. So the ball is always guaranteed to end up in 1 or 2 specific like spots depending on how hard your swing is. And you technically also have a miss on top of the other 2. So you really only have 3 ways that your ball can go. And so no matter how hard you try, as long as your swing is of the same force type, you are always going to end up in the same spot. So, you know, if for those of you who are used to golf games in the past, like Pangya or whatever, Topspin or whatever the golf game is called, you can actually manipulate your distance of your swing by quite a bit. With this, you don't get that, and you don't get the ability to angle your shots in as precise a way as well. So a large part of what makes golf is out of the game. So you can kind of just like, ooh, I thought that was gonna like land on the floor and make a loud sound. And at the point you might think like, well, yeah, the whole idea of playing golf games, like most of the things that make them what they aren't in the game. But what about the golf clubs, right? Like you look at like actual golf players in real life, they tend to have more clubs than an actual salaryman would have days off in a year. And so you might think that like, well, if we have different clubs, we would still have like different swing speeds, different swing angles. Maybe the fact that you can kind of read the wind in this game with the fact that the bird shows there means that you can kind of manipulate some stuff, but no. If you think that that's true, I have a very sorry and very, very unfortunate thing to tell you, but none of that actually exists in this game. So first thing, wind does not actually do anything. You can see the bird being somewhere on the screen, but it doesn't do anything other than making your QTE a little bit harder. If you pass the QTE, your ball will always swing the same way anyway, so there's no difference there. And the other thing that you need to take note of is also the fact that, yeah, you kind of do have a club selection, but every character only really has 2 clubs you can select from, and you don't really need to swap the club. You can beat the entire game with just a single club and it's not an issue. And then you have Mr. Monkey, our main character over here, who literally only has 1 club, which, put a pin in that, we're going to come back to that in a little bit. You don't really get the choice in clubs either, so think about it this way, everything that makes a golf game, the ability to angle your shots, choose your shot power, choose what club to use, and to read the wind, everything is not in this game. So we can more or less say that this is definitely not a golf game. You can imagine that this game is kind of fun for the first like maybe hour, but after a while it gets very boring once you actually realize that this game is not actually a golf game in any way, shape or form, which to you and me, perhaps it might mean a lot less, but to people who love the manga series, right, which was a popular one back in the day, if you were someone who was expecting this game as someone who loved the series to be a fun golf game, that's not what you get. And when you look at the PV once again, the PV actually makes it look like it's potentially actually a golf game. They don't show you the fact that it's a QTE based point and click game as much as the actual experience of the game actually is. And to top it all off is the fact that this game, like I said before, you go up to a maximum of 6 holes. And the thing is that it's a best 3 out of 5. So if you win the first 3 matches, the run just ends right there. And so that isn't all too much to the game itself. And the thing is, once you get that 3 out of 5, the run just ends, credit rolls. So essentially within like 5 minutes or 7 minutes, if you're really good at this game, you could end the entire game without any form of intrusion or like delays in between, which, as you can imagine, rolling the credits, right, it's in a sense telling the player that, hey, you're done with the game. And with this game, where the longest mode you have is match, and match has no story, mind you, because the way the game works is that you play a round of golf, the Napoleonic era fireman comes in to BM you tell him to piss off, you play the next round, and this is it. There is no individual story for each character, like if you were to play a fighting games arcade mode, let's say Blaze Blue, Continuum Shift. It has more content in it than this game does, because aside from the arcade mode, which is what the entirety of Saru, Prographer, this game essentially is, you did actually have a story mode where you got to understand the plot and the world that the game is set in. With this, you don't really get that. The closest you get to any form of character or world building is the one-liners the character gives you, the weirdness of their clubs, and the holes that you play at, which all of that, to someone who does not know the series, it's not gonna make any sense at all. And to the people who actually enjoyed the IP, I can imagine this actually being sad for them to experience, you know? Here's a video of me playing the game while playing Battle Brothers instead, because there's so little going on in this game, and for the most part, I don't really miss out too much within the game itself, because of the fact that once you get used to the game, you don't really have much to worry about, and doing the same things over and over will always give you the same result. And since I was playing with the AI at the highest difficulty already, I did not have to worry about me having the AI get ahead of me at the time, because I knew that if I repeat the same actions every time, I would always beat the AI. So you look at the game, it's all like this, right? It's not too much. You can clear a single run of the game up to the credits in like 7 minutes. It's a very short game. So why did I take so long to make this video? Well, it just has to do with how the other 2 characters are unlocked. So the game actually has a decent amount of unlockable stuff. Each of the characters' special skills are something that you have to unlock as well, depending on the character. And the first unlockable character, which is Mr. AI, is gonna replace us all man. In order to unlock him, you actually need to first clear every single hole without going OB a single time. And OB means going out of bounds. So like if your ball flies out into the outer spaces of the wall, that's considered OB. Once you get used to the game, it's really easy. It's just an issue of like, you need to ensure that you play every single hole in the game. The issue with that is that the game doesn't really give you a good way of keeping track of any of these achievements that you need to unlock anything. So like in order to unlock the rest of the holes that you can play, you first need to play every single hole that already exists. The issue is that there are more holes than there are rounds in a single match of golf in this game. So playing a single round from start to end will not guarantee you that you'll go through every single hole. And on top of that, then this is the worst part about it all, is the fact that you only get to select the very first hole. So you select that hole, and every other hole after that will definitely be different from each other, but they are not guaranteed to give you every unique hole they've never played before. And the game does not help you keep track of this. So if, like me, you played this through at the start not realizing this was an achievement, you're gonna have to come back later on and realize that, like, shit, okay, now I need to play every single hole to 100% this, but I don't know what holes I've already played and what holes I have not, because the game does not give you any indication of it. They don't even give you like a least holes till clear or a speed run time below each hole to indicate that it has at least been played before. There's none of that. So you're gonna play this game and like take note of every single hole that you have played before so that you can ensure you get through every single hole, and even then it's random. So in the worst possible case, you might have to play through multiple times of like multiple holes just to ensure that you get every single clear, which, as you can imagine with the content of this game, you're gonna get bored really quickly. And the thing is, the game doesn't really tell you how to unlock anything either, so you need to somehow find that out, or play really, really good, or look at the wiki to figure this out. It's just horrible. And the worst part about the character that you get at the very end is that, like I mentioned before, it's the same character. You're getting the same character again. You're thinking, oh, but no, clearly if they're gonna be like an awakened version of the character, there'll be something different about them, right? Well, you're not wrong. They are very different, but I mean different in the sense that they are not like their original self, and instead they have evolved to the upper plane. For you see, they too have now given up their normal golf club in exchange for the nunchuck golf club as well. I'm at a loss of words here. Like, if you think that she's gonna use the same club in a different way from the other guy, yeah, no. It's not any different at all. She becomes a reskin of Mr. Bruce Lee Nunchuck Golf Man over there. So, you don't get anything new from the sixth character. I feel like I wasted my time trying to unlock them because, like, they are just a reskin of another character. And there isn't really too much to talk about when it comes to game balance either. All characters play the same and will end up taking the same shot to end up in the same location, because this is the point to click QTE, where no character has a unique advantage over the other. Granted, each character has their own special skill, but even then, the special skills don't really help all too much. Maybe it would help you to reduce the number of shots required by 1 at points, or maybe it gets your ball to go a little further, but that's about it. It doesn't do too much to affect the long-term game itself, since the special abilities are something you can only use sparsely, and aside from those, every character is completely identical. Here's a pro tip, an epic gamer skill thing, tip of the day, if you will, for this game, if you actually decide to play it one day. You can actually clear everything super easily if you play as Benny and you go up against Saru. Remember how I said that Benny's skill is in cheating in the game? Well, this actually plays a part in making the whole like grinding thing a lot easier, because if you really want to ensure that you win, this is a pairing that works, because the way that Benny cheats is that she takes your opponent's club and she uses it and she breaks their club. So for the rest of that round, they would play horribly, and so they would get affected, if not for the fact that they have multiple clubs, so they can just swap their clubs and be fine with it. Except for Saru. So really all you have to do is use her against him, break his club, and he becomes even more important than a guy who has removed both of their balls in a vasectomy, because he is pretty much guaranteed to lose unless you are somehow so bad at the game that you can't even clear the hole. So yeah, like unlocking everything isn't really hard either, because once you know what you're doing, you're basically playing the game on the highest difficulty against an AI with the mental capacity of a 2-year-old who was barely able to swing the stick in the first place. So that brings us back to my original assessment, right? Where like, well, if the game is this bad, why am I saying that it doesn't belong on this list? It's just due to the simple reason that, like, compared to every other game that's on this list, I actually had like some level of fun for the first hour or two of playing this game. Like, as I mentioned before, the people watching this game, they too didn't agree that it was a good game, but they did agree that this was the most interesting experience that they had out of the 3 games they played that day, or I played that day. And the thing is, comparing it to every other game I played, at least this game gave me some level of enjoyment at the start of it all. Like, I can see that, like, if I had loved the series and if I had paid full price for the game, which was around 6,000 plus yen, which is like just insane to be honest for the level of quality of content you're getting, I would be pretty pissed as well. And if I was told beforehand that this was a 50th anniversary game and I had saw all the hype marketing that existed for it, I think I would be pretty pissed as well. But because I saw none of that and I looked at this game as a bad game, first and foremost, that I was gonna experience, I actually wasn't too disappointed. I feel like a large part of what made this game as much of a disappointment as it was and that put it on this list, this game was one where there were high expectations for. And like for those of you who study marketing or psychology, I guess the whole idea of cognitive dissonance where you expect the thing to be here and it's actually here, and this gap in between like what you want it to be and what it actually is actually causes a dissonance in your mind that causes even more negative emotions in you than there otherwise would have been. And I feel like this dissonance was so great with this game that people were just completely pissed with the game, and it is a large part of this that this game ended up on this list. But that said, if this game was like a $10 game made by some no-name studio that was trying to pay homage to a game that they really liked, I think this is actually a fine game. Like, if it was actually at a lower price and by some no-name studio, I think I would be fine with this. Like, I'll be just like, yeah, it's fine. It's enjoyable for like an hour or two. I paid like $10 for this. Obviously, it's still worth less money than Rimwallers, but hey, it isn't too bad of an experience. I can enjoy it for a little bit at least, but the issue is that it wasn't that. Personally, I don't think it's that bad of a game, but I'm looking at it from a different perspective from the people who rated the game in the era itself, and that might be why I got this game on the cheap and I was expecting something super bad like everything else on the list. My expectations were very different from the people of the time who were, by virtue of the fact that they actually saw the PV of the game, the promotional video, were expecting a good game, and therefore when this wasn't that and this ended up being a point and click game, the dissonance, that gap, probably caused them to be way more angry. Then I feel like this game actually arguably ought to have been. Like, there were no bugs, it's no Sengoku Hime. It was fun for a period of time, unlike Nugia, which was just a broken game balance mess with a plot that was very boring. I mean, this had no plot, but at least this was fun for the first hour plus. So while this game was on the list, I feel like this game is the only game on the list which perhaps may not have belonged on the list. Like, there were many bad games that were made during the time, and this game obviously is a bad game, but it does not feel like a game that gets to the level of bad that every other game on this list does. Like, this came out in the same year as New Gear, and as you'll see from some of the other games we'll be going through, the other games that I've played after this one, I get the feeling that once you've seen the other ones, you'll probably agree with me as well. Like, yeah, this game is a bad game for sure, but when you consider the quality of how bad every other game is, this may not have been as bad as it is. And so, do let me know what you think about this game in the comments, cause this is a game that I personally, maybe it's because I'm desensitized from all the shit that I play all the time, me playing all these bad games, and maybe it was due to the fact that I was playing it on stream, so us dicking around and making fun of it added to the humor of it. But let me know what you think about this game in and of itself. If presented with this game for a series you like, would you find this to be a game that would, as just a result of that, be something that should end up on this list? Or do you think that perhaps even then you could see it as a bad game, but not one of the worst games of the year? Whew. So, it's been a little while. I've fully sobered up at this point. So, that's all I really have to say about this game, or had back then. Looking through everything, I feel like I've gone through as much as I could want to. I feel like some parts I might have done it a little too excessively as well. Maybe the skits might not have had to be in there, might have like dragged on the video a little more than it should have. But that was entertaining to do. Hopefully you find it entertaining. Anyway, thank you all for watching this video. For the next few videos, I have put the entire schedule of what videos I plan to release and when on the Discord channel, which our lovely friend Snorlaxo helped to set up. So if you want to find out what I'm preparing next or when I'm streaming what as well, you can find it over there. Or if you just want to chill, feel free to just hop in and shitpost or whatever. As long as it's nothing too horrible, you'll probably get with us. If you enjoyed this video, do give it a like, maybe a subscribe if you watched it to this point. And yeah, that's all I really have to say. Thank you all for watching. Have a good day. This video is probably gonna be an hour long and I don't want to drag it on for too much longer, so take care and bye bye.